60 seconds. That's all it takes for a COM-C to turn into a combat mode aboard a U.S. Navy carrier. A COM-C, a normal morning flight schedule, jets being refueled, crews resetting catapults, yellow shirts waving signals across the deck. It's like just another Tuesday. Then it hits. A radar ping, an unidentified object. Too fast, too low, no transponder. The Combat Information Center lights up. CIC to flight deck. Scramble alert. Emergency launch authorization. Go now. Sirens, orders, chaos, but rehearsed chaos. One pilot, already half-suited, is sprinting toward his F-18 Super Hornet. The deck crew clears space. The blast deflector starts rising. The steam pressure starts hissing and building. Everyone moves like they've drilled this 100 times, because they have. No time for questions, no time for checklists. Just one chance to get the jet airborne. Throttle full, launch bar down, afterburners engage. And in 2.3 seconds, a 66,000-pound machine is airborne and climbing, loaded for combat. But what triggered it? What did they see? Was it a drone, a missile, or something worse? What began as a routine patrol became a full-blown launch under threat conditions. And what happens next? No one on that ship will ever forget. 3 minutes earlier, there were no alarms. Just the low hum of jet engines, crew calls over the flight deck comms, and the steady rhythm of operations aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt. But deep inside, in the Combat Information Center, where no sunlight reaches and every screen matters, something flashed. A contact. Then a second. No IFF signal, no flight plan, closing fast from 38 nautical miles southeast. The radar operator didn't hesitate. Unknown air contact, low altitude, vectoring inbound, no response to hails. The officer of the deck didn't need to ask twice. CIC to Air Boss, request emergency launch protocol. Initiate condition red. Above deck, chaos clicks into motion. The crew didn't panic. They executed. Every movement they made was something they'd rehearsed in blackout drills, storm simulations, and live ops. But this wasn't a drill. This was live. In the ready room, Lieutenant Jake Dusty Harper had just finished strapping into his G-suit. Before he could reach for his flight helmet, the call came through. He was already running. Why him? Well, because his jet was fueled, loaded, and parked at Catapult 2. Because he'd flown that exact loadout last week during Red Sea operations. Because sometimes, in a high-stakes moment, the decision comes down to readiness and gut instinct. On deck, yellow shirts cleared lanes with fast arm signals. Ordnancemen triple-checked pins on the AIM-120s and Sidewinders. Green shirts ran diagnostics like their lives depended on it, because they just might. The mystery contact kept closing. 28 miles, now 22. Altitude, unstable, could be a drone, could be a manned aircraft flying nap of the Earth. From CIC, the carrier's tactical action officer updated command. No comms, still tracking, speed suggests fixed wing, not rotary. That was all the captain needed. Launch now, he cried out. And just like that, the entire ship focused on one goal, getting Harper's Super Hornet airborne. One catapult team, one jet, one launch. Steam pressure built as Harper taxied forward, hands steady despite the adrenaline spike. He gave the crew the thumbs up, the canopy sealed, green shirts ran their final checks, then the CAT officer crouched, launch bar locked, hold, fire. The catapult slammed forward. Within seconds, Harper was off the deck and rising. Behind him, the rest of the deck froze, half in awe, half in anticipation, because what they'd just done wasn't routine. It was a live response to a real threat, and no one knows yet what was flying towards them. But one thing was clear. The enemy had closed the distance, and the U.S. Navy just answered. The second the catapult launched Harper's F-18, the deck went dead silent for half a beat, like everyone held their breath at once. Then it exploded into motion again. Steam lingered in the air, rising like smoke after a gunshot. Green shirts scrambled to clear the catapult track. Red shirts rechecked the next loadout, and deep below deck, data from the jet's sensors began streaming into the ship's combat information center. But for Lieutenant Harper, the world had just narrowed to the cockpit. His jet screamed off the bow, with 66,000 pounds of thrust forcing him into the seat like a concrete punch. In under 2.5 seconds, he went from 0 to nearly 150 knots. The carrier deck disappeared behind him. In front, blue sky, open sea, and a threat somewhere beyond radar range. His HUD lit up with contact data. No visual yet, but a bearing. The threat was still coming. Back on the flight deck, Catapult 2 groaned back into reset. Another jet was taxiing forward in case Harper called for backup. But this first launch, this was the Spear. Everything about the emergency launch was precision under pressure. The launch bar had to engage perfectly. The shuttle had to fire with split-second timing. Every person on that deck has one job, and it better be perfect, especially when launching under red alert. Inside the cockpit, Harper switched to internal comms. Raven 1 airborne, climbing Angels 15, confirming task. From the bridge came the response. Raven 1, your weapon's tight. Confirm track, intercept, and identify. Translation, don't shoot unless you're absolutely sure. This wasn't the Middle East in 2004. This was modern warfare, where one misfire could spark headlines, or even worse. He leveled out at 15,000 feet, turned into the wind, and lit the afterburners again. If something was coming, he'd find it. And if it was hostile, he'd be the first and maybe the only line of defense. Because right now, Harper wasn't just a fighter pilot. He was the firewall. 15,000 feet over the Red Sea, Lieutenant Harper scanned the horizon, nothing but blue and static. But his sensors told a different story. The radar contact was holding altitude at around 2,000 feet, still inbound. No transponder, no IFF, no response to hails. The signal flickered occasionally as if it were dipping in and out of radar cover. Could be terrain masking, could be intentional. Harper toggled to data link view. The E-2D Hawkeye circling above the carrier fed live tracking data into his cockpit. Then came the voice from AWACS. Raven 1, be advised, possible UAV. Iranian signature, estimated type Shahed 197 variant, could be armed. That changed everything. Those drones weren't just for recon. They'd been used in Yemen, Iraq, and even over Syria. Cheap, slow, but capable. Capable of carrying explosives, or acting like a kamikaze system. And now, one of them was flying straight towards a U.S. carrier strike group. Harper's voice stayed calm. Roger, visual scan will confirm. He pushed the stick gently right, banking to intercept. The drone was now inside 25 miles. Then, visual contact. It was low, hugging the sea, moving slower than expected. But the wingspan gave it away. Boxy fuselage, propeller, rear drive, definitely not a manned craft, but it was moving with intent and heading straight for the Roosevelt. Back on the ship, commanders weighed their options, but they couldn't take chances with a suspected suicide drone. But they also couldn't risk a diplomatic flare-up over an ID mistake. So it came down to Harper. Raven 1, weapons free if hostile intent confirmed, crackled over the radio. He nosed down slightly, approaching fast from above. Within seconds, he was trailing the drone at a safe offset. Then he saw it. Under the belly of the drone, what looked like a payload. Probably makeshift, maybe homemade, but dangerous enough. Target has external mount, possible explosives device. Recommend engagement. Raven 1, clear to fire. He didn't hesitate. Fox 2. An AIM-9X Sidewinder detached from his wing and sliced through the sky. No afterburner, no flash, just a quiet whoosh. It struck dead center. The drone disappeared in a fireball just 20 feet above the ocean, debris splashing in a long arc. Harper pulled away, scanning for secondaries. None appeared. But the tension didn't fade, because drones don't usually travel alone. AWACS, Raven 1, request immediate sweep of area. Possible follow-on threat. Back on the Roosevelt, the bridge wasn't celebrating either. They were watching every radar sweep, waiting for another contact to pop. But nothing came. One drone, one intercept. Still, it didn't feel right. Because this wasn't random. It was a probe. And that raised a chilling question. What were they really testing? Back on the flight deck, the roar of the Super Hornet was long gone, but the tension still hung in the air like static. Red shirts were reloading the rails, green shirts ran diagnostics on the catapult track. Nobody spoke unless it mattered, and nobody smiled. Not yet. In the ready room, Lieutenant Harper's locker sat open, helmet gone, flight checklist half folded on the bench, the kind of image that reminds everyone, when he's up there, anything can happen. A deck crew chief, callsign Bear, watched the sky, arms crossed. "That bird took off fast," he muttered, to no one particular. "Too fast for comfort." Next to him, a junior crewman nodded. "That the first time we launched on condition red?" "Nope," Bear said. "Just the first time you were here for it." Down below in the Combat Information Center, the mood was controlled. The CIC crew had tracked the intercept live. They'd heard Harper call the kill, and even though the threat was gone, no one relaxed. Because they knew the truth this time, everything worked. But that's never guaranteed. On the deck, the catapult team reset for the next flight. Standard launch. Training run. Everything normal again. But the adrenaline hadn't faded. One of the green shirts, a young guy, maybe 20, wiped sweat off his face with a gloved hand. He wasn't even supposed to be on duty that shift. He got called in as a backup. Later, he'd tell his bunkmate, "I've never seen people move that fast. Like everyone knew exactly what to do. No yelling, just action." That's the Navy difference. Because you don't rise to the occasion, you fall back on your training. While the crew caught their breath, Harper's aircraft was already looping back into holding pattern. Its job done, but its presence still necessary. Because when it comes to defending a carrier, the F-18 Super Hornet isn't just a jet, it's a guardian. The Super Hornet, officially the Boeing F-18EF, is the U.S. Navy's go-to multi-role fighter. It's flown by every carrier air wing in the fleet. And in moments like this, you see exactly why. Twin-engine, carrier-launched, and built to operate from sea decks in punishing conditions. The Super Hornet is fast, rugged, and insanely flexible. Air-to-air, air-to-ground, close support, recon. It can do it all. Let's break it down. Top speed, Mach 1.8. Combat range over 1,200 miles. Payload up to 17,750 pounds. And most importantly, it's CATO-bar compatible. That stands for Catapult Assisted Takeoff, but Arrested Recovery. In simple terms, it's built to be flung off a ship at breakneck speed and still land back on a moving steel box bobbing in the ocean. The jet that Harper launched in, likely part of VFA Squadron, Strike Fighter Squadron 11 or similar. These squadrons train for exactly the kind of scramble that just happened. They live on the edge of readiness. But raw performance isn't the Super Hornet's only advantage. It's loaded with tech. Active Electronically Scanned Array, or AESA radar, infrared tracking systems, helmet-mounted cueing for weapons locks, and secure data link feeds from AWACS and ships below. That means that the pilot doesn't just see what's in front of him, he sees what the fleet sees. And when a launch goes red alert, that level of shared intel is the difference between control and chaos. That drone never had a chance. But if it had been something worse, something faster, smarter, manned, Harper still would have had the tools to take it down. Because the Super Hornet isn't just an aircraft, it's the fist behind the fleet. It worked, this time, perfectly. But that's not always how it goes. What if Harper's jet hadn't launched in time? What if the drone had reached the carrier? What if it wasn't a lone UAV, but the lead element in a coordinated attack? Those aren't fantasy scenarios, let me tell you. Those are real risks that the Navy trains for every day. Take the 2022 incident aboard the USS Carl Vinson. A routine F-18 landing ended in disaster when the jet overshot the deck, slammed into the ocean, and injured multiple crew during the recovery. Or in 2020, when a fire broke out on the USS Nimitz flight deck during a launch sequence. In both cases, minor timing failures created major chaos. And when we talk about emergencies at sea, timing is everything. A faulty catapult valve, a dropped pin, a glitch in the flight controls, Even a half-second delay in the throttle roll-up can mean the difference between airborne and crashed off the bow. Then there's always the threat in the sky. What if that drone had been carrying an EFP charge or a dirty payload? The consequences wouldn't just be tactical, they'd be international. One explosion on deck and the whole strike group enters DEFCON level readiness. That's why every piece of the system matters. Every sensor, every mechanic, every deckhand, every checklist. Because even with all that firepower, all that steel and speed, the system only works if everyone gets it right every time. And today, they did. But the next time, they might not get a warning. From the outside, it looked like a normal jet launch. But if you were on deck that day, if you felt the sirens, saw the scramble, heard the roar of that catapult, then you know the truth. This was no routine flight. It was a textbook example of why U.S. Navy carriers are more than floating airports. They're war machines run by people, disciplined, trained, and ready to launch steel into the sky in under 90 seconds. And this time, that readiness made all the difference. A threat approached, the crew didn't flinch. The Super Hornet launched, the target never made it close. But ask any sailor or pilot and they'll tell you, it's never just a drone, it's a test. Which raises a question for you. What would have happened if the system failed? Let us know in the comments. What's your take on how close we came? And if you want more breakdowns like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And if you want to go a step further and support this channel directly, please join the fleet. You get loyalty badges, priority responses, and you help us bring more maritime true stories to the surface. Click join on our channel page and get on board. Thanks for watching.